Hi everyone, welcome to this next part of my Star Wars Legion painting guide series. Today we're going to start looking at Princess Leia. She's an additional operative that you can buy for the game. As with all of these characters at the moment, I have absolutely no idea if she's any good because I've not played. So looking at this is likely to be another relatively quick models of paint. I've been looking online for some reference photos, trying to work out sort of like the shades and colours that she's wearing. And it's quite obvious that obviously the boots, the belt and the blaster, they're all going to be black. So same sort of process we did with Han Solo for his boots. The trousers she's wearing are a very light blue, so almost like a jean material. They've got a yellow stripe running down the side, again like Han Solo did, so we'll do that in a very similar way. The sort of like shirt she's wearing, there does seem to be a khaki shirt underneath, so that's relatively easy to do. But the actual sort of like with a small jacket kind of thing, it's quite difficult to tell online whether it's grey or blue. There's multiple different pictures, and it's not really clear. There's some from the films, still some of the films that look blue. There's some from like action figures and computer generated versions where it looks more grey, and then you go through a bit more and there's more from the film which look blue again. So I'm going to go for a blue grey, but I want it to contrast with the trousers, so I don't want it to look like she's wearing a jumpsuit. So as we have done all the way through, we're going to start off first with painting the flesh, and to do that we're going to be using the Vallejo basic flesh tone, which is this one. So basic skin tone followed by a wash of flesh wash. So I'll go ahead and get those done, and then we'll come back and we'll start looking at the next steps and the colours we're going to use for the actual clothes and her hair and all those sorts of bits. So the flesh wash is dried, and I've actually base coated the base just because I had some of the colour out at the time. Now, applying the base coats for the actual Leia uniform itself is going to be relatively simple. I've had another look at some of the reference pictures, and I'll throw some in at some point so you can see the difficulty I had actually deciding which colour to go with. I'm assuming that over the years, with obviously the constant remasters that George Lucas did and the improvements they made for sort of like the VHS versions and then the DVD versions and all that sort of stuff, the colour seems to have changed a little bit. So not unusual for older films to be touched up like that, but a little bit frustrating trying to work out which appears to be correct. So starting most obviously, we'll go model colour black for the blaster, the boots and the belt that she's wearing. I'll go with the game colour heavy sienna for her hair, just as a base coat to start with. Then for the sort of like sleeves she's got underneath the jackety type of thing, model colour Iraqi sand. Let's move this over here. And then the trousers I will use from, I think this is actually made by Army Painter, but it's called War Paints. It's from a paint set I got for a zombie game. It's got some pretty good colours in there. The only downside to these paints is they need to be shaked like hell. So I need to shake it and shake it and shake it before I even try to get any paint out of the bottle. But we'll use that for the trousers. Going back again to the stripe down the side of the trousers with the Iraqi sand. And then finally for the little jackety type of thing, I'm going to use this heavy grey. It's called heavy grey, but actually looking at it when it's painted, it's more of a green colour. So it's a good starting point for something that's sort of camouflaged or like a khaki colour. Not khaki, sorry. Well, you know what I mean, yeah. Like olive green, olive drab, kind of army colour. So I'll go ahead and get all those base colours down. And once they're done, we'll come back and we'll start looking at the highlights. So the base coats have been added, and so have a couple of washes. So nothing particularly fancy here. On the trousers, I used a Army Painter blue tone, And after the initial coat, it still looked a little bit dark, so I actually added in a bit of the quick shade strong tone, which I also used on the hair, the shirt, and her jacket thing, just to give a little bit of more definition. And then finally on the black areas, so the boots, blaster, and the holsters and her belt there, I used regular Nuln oil. So this just gives it a bit of a darker recess on the model itself, so it makes highlighting a lot easier because we're starting from a darker level. So now we'll go back over with the original colours again that I showed in the last segment and just pick out the highlights where we can. From there we also add some extra bits in as well, some other colours. So for example on the jacket I'll be using, the vest shirt that she's wearing, I'll be using the Iraqi sand, but then I'll also be adding some sort of like bleached bone colour in as well. I think it's called bone white from Vallejo game colour. For the jacket that she's wearing, I'll be using the same one and then probably adding a little bit of Iraqi sand into it just to highlight it a little bit more. On the trousers, I'll be going back with the same colour and then potentially adding a little bit of maybe white just to get that sort of like quite extreme highlight that you'll see on jeans. And then on the hair, I'll just be going in, and I'll come back to the hair when I do it because I had a few different colours in that. So I'll go ahead and do some of the highlights and then come back and show you the progress that's been made. So here's the highlighted but still at the moment unbased Leia model finished. As I mentioned in the previous part, I went through using the original colours, then adding in a bit of a highlight tone as well. So on the jeans, I went back and used the War Paints Wasted Jeans and added in a little bit of model colour off-white just to give the highlights. And if I turn around, you can see on the back of the jeans, just sort of like highlighting the bits where the light hits the jeans and the creases themselves. You can see it on the front there as well, actually, quite nicely. I do actually, looking at this, the black might need a little bit more because that was just game colour black mixed in with some, not game colour black, model colour black and light grey model colour as well. You can kind of see the highlighting on the holster best on the side here where that's been done. I didn't want to do it too much because if you use too much of a highlight on black, it ends up looking a bit more like it's meant to be grey rather than black, which is never what you want in this sort of situation. Then back to the shirt or the undershirt, Iraqi sand, and into the Iraqi sand a little bit of off-white just to lighten it up. Did a couple of layers of that, adding a little bit more off-white each time just to get quite a light final tone. The outer coat, I used the original colour that I originally used for it, which was the game colour opaque heavy grey with some Iraqi sand mixed in to complete the highlight. The hair, I went back with game colour, the extra opaque heavy sienna, and added in some beastie brown. I didn't want to go too light for the hair because of course Leia's got quite dark hair, but I also still wanted it to stand out, so you can kind of see the details highlighted in the hair there, just very subtly. Then the areas where there's a bit of metal showing, so the belt buckle, and then a bit on the blaster here that I've done. That was just done doing model colour oily steel, which is a dark metallic colour. And the stripes on the trousers, as I have mentioned previously, to paint yellow I normally go on to it first with a more of a beige colour, so for that I used Iraqi sand as the base and then just went over with model colour flat yellow. the beige from the Iraqi sand gives it a nice sort of like starting point for when you're painting yellow. So if I tried to paint that directly onto the blue of the jeans, I would have needed about maybe 5-6 coats before I started to actually get that solid yellow colour. And the coverage is much better on a beige than it is on a yellow. And then finally, very last thing was the face, which, as I've done before in previous tutorials, basic skin tone, a wash of, I've got a new one here actually, I bought a new one, game wash, so that's just the Vallejo flesh wash, and then coming back in with a highlight again of the basic skin tone, and then finishing off with light flesh, mainly the light flesh on the tip of the nose, the eyebrows areas, and then the tops of the cheeks, just out, and the chin as well. So overall, enjoyed this. Relatively simple. I don't think the model is quite as good as the Han Solo model. He came out looking very nice and actually looks a lot like the actor Harrison Ford, who played him in the original trilogy, whereas this doesn't particularly look like Carrie Fisher. I think the facial features are a bit large, sort of like the nose, the lips, to an extent the forehead. It's all quite, I'd say, a bit more masculine than Carrie Fisher in the films, but I guess that's down to the scale this is in. If you were to go for those sort of like delicate features, you might not really get much of a model to paint, especially with a small nose and small face kind of thing. You might not have much detail there. So overall, it's very nice. It'll be a nice addition to the force that I'm painting up. It goes very nicely with the Han Solo and Chewbacca that I've just finished. So that'll be leading me on to the next model that I'll be looking at, which will be Luke Skywalker. So be sure to come and check back at that. I'm quite looking forward to painting him. So thanks for watching, and I'll get this based up and be showing it off soon. Thanks again. Bye.